Welcome to what will eventually be a series of videos on two young fillies we purchased at the Open Box Rafter Ranch annual production sale in South Dakota. They arrived late one evening after an 1,800-mile road trip. We moved them in, visited with them the first day. We show that by some informal videos and stills, and then a longer session on the second day, which contains a bit of a wrinkle. Stick around and see what I mean. So, here we are, day 2, continuing our voyage of discovery with these two young fillies. And I get a surprise. I did not anticipate that either of these fillies would show any aggression. That's unusual. Maybe I should have seen it coming, but I did deal with it when it happened. And I dealt with it physically, and there are those in our horse universe these days who don't think that that's a permissible thing. I beg to differ. Horses deal with each other physically. If you let them, they will deal with you physically. If they do so, better to respond in kind to avoid developing future problems that are going to be very hard to fix. So, maybe a little hard for some folks to watch, also a little hard to see. The camera angle was a challenge in this tight stall area, but I think you'll get the idea. Have a look, make up your own mind. So we're here with the two fillies who just arrived about 48 hours ago from South Dakota. And you'll see that they are much more people-oriented than you might expect for horses that were basically range raised. This has all pretty much come about in that 48-hour period, because what I've done is very low-tech and not very macho. I will go in with them with feed. I become a very good thing. And this is a lesson that isn't a lesson. Life is its own lesson, and this is life. They get feed, and guess what? I'm the giver of that good thing, and they're digging it. So the first time I did this, here's a hay string we want to get rid of. The first time we did this, they didn't really know what to do. They figured that out. In fact, I'm not going to do this too many times, because the next thing they do is they get so confident, they start pushing you over when you go through the door. So you have to balance that. But to start things, I just want to be part of the scenery, but a good part of the scenery, where they're not so concerned. Now that filly there, you can see I was going to touch her. She was extremely shy, let's call it, when she arrived. Now, see, you see that little horse lay her ears back? That was an opportunity. She is very dominant, and she thinks she can do the same thing with me, and she doesn't get to do that. Am I going to make her head shy? Do you think? I'm just making her reasonably cautious. Does that mean she's bad-minded? No, it means she just hadn't figured out where the human fits in the hierarchy of life. And as those things go, it's somewhat important to me that she acknowledge that I'm at the top of the food chain. And if I am feeding the other filly, I can keep her off the feed. That's part of it. I don't want to have the horse dictating to me how things are going to go. Now, could you pay me to smack this little filly like I just did the big one? No. This little horse here, I have a strong feeling she will go through her entire life with me and never be punished. She's just one of those very sensitive horses that have their own challenges, but which in some ways I favor. She's not foolish, she's cautious. There's a survival value in that for her, and when we're interacting, for me too. So what I did the very first time I was in, I'm going to repeat, but I'm not sold on it being the right thing today. Yesterday, what I did was go in, flip this muck bucket, and have a seat. And people are very analytic about these things. What I did was I went in and sat down because it felt like the right thing to do. And I kind of reverse engineered that. What was it that made me decide to do that? And see, this is an opportunity to pet that filly. Well, one thing about sitting down, you are completely non-threatening and neutral. You're also completely vulnerable. Exposing yourself a little bit to a horse and to a little bit of the risk that goes with them makes them feel that you're not a threat to them. There's a chance that one of these things will climb right on my lap, cuddle up, and break all my ribs. I would rather that didn't happen, and that's why this is probably a position that is running its course, because you can see they're pretty comfortable now. But yeah, the Palomino filly, Bunny, if she pushes on me or pushes on that other filly, I'm going to repeat that same correction, because she doesn't get to do that. So everybody's learning something. I'm learning something about them. They're learning something about where they fit in life. But this is just, it's not really a big lesson. It's just me being part of the scene to get them ready to learn the things that they're going to need to learn. I don't need to get these babies out. Now see, they're getting a little close. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand up and become just a little more threatening. But just keep feeding them. No problem, but that seated position kind of ran its course. Yesterday, it was critical because it was so relaxing to them that they just felt like, well, this guy's a lot smaller than I thought. He's a lot less threatening. He has no body language. He's just kind of a feeder. Well, I have to graduate from being a feeder, at least a seated feeder. So they have pretty quickly polished off most of a scoop of grain. That's a good sign, because they just hauled 1,800 miles. Could they be feeling a little sick? Yeah, they could. Some of these things get sniffles. You watch them for that. But so far, so good. Now I'm going to get a little bit of alfalfa hay, which also is a treat. And I'm going to give them some of that. Now, one thing I'm not doing, these fillies have probably been fed, I'm going to guess, good grass hay and just good grass where they come from. This is a little bit new for them. Hey, don't lay your ears back at her. I'm protecting her. You may not think it, but I am. Here. She hadn't figured out how to break into that flake. Now that right there, when she moves that filly away from where she thought there was some feed, I don't fault her for, because she was on her own time. I wasn't in the mix. She's in charge. That's okay. She started a little bit happy with the grain, a little less interested in the hay today. Plus they had a pretty good feed of hay this morning. But what I'm interested in is just getting them to where they're a little more habituated to the human. And then they'll be ready to do things like learn to lead a little better, get better at catching. And you'll see these fillies have halter ropes on. That's a catch. It's easier than trying to catch them and put a halter rope on them. There you go. Belinda, that's the red filly is Belinda. These two fillies are by the same stallion. And see, the red filly's more cautious. And what I might do is take this hay and just stroke her with it. That's actually less threatening than my own hand. And what I'll do is let her keep eating, but I'm going to reach around and touch her back. And see, she'd like to leave, but what I love about the red filly is she's not going to run away, and she's very light. She's barely halter broke, but her nature is to be real soft and light. So she's going to be very trainable. The yellow filly's going to have opinions. She is a full sister to Buddy, whom you may have seen in other videos. He too is very confident and will state his opinions. He's also going to be a great horse to ride across country because he's not scared of much. They just needed to learn, and this one will need to learn, that don't be afraid of the human, but step back when the person is in your space. Don't crowd them, and certainly don't try to dominate them, which she would have been more than happy to do yesterday and a little bit again today when we first started. So I'm going to just see if these two girls will just step up here like a team. Yep. All of that stuff's good for them. All of that stuff's good for them. So I could have them out teaching them to yield the hindquarter and teaching them to be soft and teaching them to step up and catch up with your hand and do all those things that I'm going to do over time. But I have preached this, and I absolutely believe that the crucial thing is doing these things when they're ready. Because when they're ready, everything you ask them to do, you're going to get a yes. Why not wait until you're sure that the likelihood is, at least, you're going to get that yes, instead of just tackling them, dominating them, and maybe making them a little fearful and resentful. So you can see with Yeller here, with Bunny, if she pushes on me, I'm as harsh as I need to be. If she's nice, I'm as nice to her as can be. This filly, I think, maybe I'm overstating, but I think I'm always going to be able to be nice to her. And I'd rather do it that way. Very nice what these folks who halter broke these things basically did. They handled their ears. That much is clear. That makes it so much easier to get the halters on and off and so forth. So the halters will be left on. They are rigged in a way that is safe. There's a lace through the buckle that takes the place of the pin that will break easily. Check the episode that we're putting up next that will show how to rig that. It's very simple, it's very safe, it's very effective, it costs almost nothing. So that's what we're doing with these babies. That's how little we're doing with them, and that's also how much. Now see, it never ends. She had no right to do that. But she's starting to learn that I'm going to be demanding when I need to be, but I am going to be fair. See that pushback? She's telling me things I need to know. And I'm not going to adjust that now in a big way. But I know this one will push on you. Now, that's a natural thing for a lot of horses. Horses are naturally inclined to move into pressure. Now watch the little filly when I push on her face. They're telling me something. They're telling me so much. This is a very good conversation. This is very diagnostic. So this filly here, the confident, outgoing one, she's going to get a little more discipline, and this filly's going to get a lot of reassurance. I want to take this out of her, that concern and the need to move away. And over time, they'll become more alike. This one will be a little more submissive and a little more respectful, and the other one will be a little more confident. And you get a more uniform horse that is just polite. Never let a horse do something that you wouldn't let a stranger on the street do to you. So when this thing tried to bite me, last time a stranger on the street tried to bite me, I busted out all its teeth. Just saying. This one I'm not going to bust her teeth out, but I'm going to make her very sure that she doesn't think she can use her teeth on me. So that's these two girls. That's a, sort of a speed date with them. And we're going to be working with them quite a bit going forward. Till next time.